First of all, listeners, watchers, it's okay for you to say that.
Hmm.
I have
For the
to.
people in the back. No.
Yeah, it's okay for you to say that. It's okay for
Mhm.
someone to ask you that question and you be like, you know what, in this moment, I don't know, and I'm figuring it out or I'm refiguring it out because there is this pressure, especially now. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know what the hell it is, but there is this pressure to like be sure and clear on yourself at every single moment. And as you change and transition and like let things and people go at certain times and like recalibrate, that answer is going to shift. And sometimes you're going to draw a blank.
Well, here we are with episode 1 of the Expression of Love podcast. My name is Soul Expression, and I am so honored to be your host for this podcast. In this episode, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Melanie, aka Mel the Oracle. She's a good friend and healer. Melanie has spent the last 7 years, in fact, as a multidimensional healing facilitator, as well as a embodiment guide, a movement artist, and a mentor for BIPOC and awakening women. In March of 2022, Melanie entered into a business sabbatical. She did this as a practice of radical self-care for mental, emotional, and spiritual, as well as energetic renewal. She wanted to focus on being for a living. Hopefully you guys enjoy. 2, 1. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Expression of Love podcast, episode 1. I'm very, very, very excited. I'm actually sitting here virtually sitting here with the inspiration for this podcast itself. And I'm just going to hang out with my friend here, my good friend. Welcome to the show, Mel the Oracle, aka Melanie. How you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. I'm sipping my tea and I'm talking to my friends, so I'm good.
Yeah, that's set and setting, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. How have you been lately? Shit is popping off left and right. Politically, we got Russia, we got stuff going on in the United States politically, we got shootings, we got all these things. I don't want to name them all because we're gonna start going down the rabbit hole, but just all of these things are popping off left and right. You're a very sensitive person. I happen to be privileged to that knowledge. How have you been, and how have some of these things impacted you? And you can go into specific ones if they come to you. This show is not censorship approved, right?
Yeah.
It's open
No
minded.
censorship. Yes. Um, I actually won't go into anything specific. It's always interesting, and I'm glad that you gave that ode to me being a sensitive person because a lot of times when things are happening, and so I hardly watch TV, definitely don't watch the news. A lot of information that I get is from conversations that I overhear or if I pop up on social media. But what happens is when I see the stuff happening, I've already felt it. Like I'll
Mhm.
wake up like, like something or what, this isn't mine. Like something collectively must be going on, and then I'll hear about it. So I'm there's been a lot of confusion between my personal feelings about my own transitions and things that are going on and what's going on collectively. And that's just like a daily thing for me. But I've noticed that it's been a little bit harder to manage just because there really is a lot, like, there's a lot happening. So I've been just feeling a little like disconnected from uh, I think the normal grounding that I usually have. So that's been a little bit interesting to navigate. But
Do you,
outside that,
do you mean like you can't catch your footing and just feel normal, or do you mean like in terms of understanding what's happening, you're not feeling like you're with everybody? What do you kind of mean by the grounding?
what I mean by that is, yeah, finding my footing. because spiritual fortitude is always important for me. And I feel like that has been a constant on my journey, even when other things like my mental health or my emotional health, even when those things might be rocky, my spiritual fortitude is always like real solid. So I feel like, and I don't feel like that's been shaken, but I feel like it's been a little bit just because I'm navigating like, ooh, I'm feeling a lot, but I'm not sure, is that mine or is that like collective feelings? It just feels very jumbled. So finding grounding has just been a little bit more difficult lately. But so that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Were you going to say anything else on the tail? I kind of cut in. Okay.
No, you're good. No, you're
Well,
good.
that's very it's very interesting, and for some people who are just who are of the belief system that whatever happens happens and it has nothing to do with me, might not really truly understand what you mean by that. And obviously it's a little hard to put into words like in a way that everybody will understand. But I did happen to see on your Instagram, I saw on an Instagram post that you did, an Alan Watts quote that I think directly speaks to what you're explaining with you said waking up sometimes, or just going about your business and then noticing just discord or shakiness, if you will, and being like, I didn't put this here. Wait a minute, hold on. Maybe even how you respond to people, I don't know, but just like wait a sec, hold on. Let me hit this reset button. Let me hit this observation bird's eye view button and see what the hell is going on. And this quote on your Instagram, it says, "There's a price to pay for every increase in consciousness. We cannot become more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain." And that also means we cannot become more sensitive to love without being more sensitive to disconnection, which, a lot of people say hate is the opposite of love. I think selfishness, isolation, disconnection is more so the opposite of love, because love is a connector. Even you don't even have to be around physical proximity around other people to really feel love for the whole world and the whole universe, the whole existence. Because it's just a connector that is godly powerful. So yeah, this quote, is a price to pay for every increase in consciousness, speaks directly to that. You wanna bounce some energy off with me on this quote?
Yeah, so I appreciate Alan Watts quite a bit.
Same here.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, wow. And that quote, when I saw it, because I'll scroll a little bit. And if I see something, I'm like, oops, screenshot, I want to share that with my community. So that quote really speaks to like the message that I try to share and the way that I try to live in that, because I think there's this idea that like spiritual ascension means that you become exempt from experiencing human things at some point. And it's like, well, as long as you're in this human body, you're going to experience the human experience. And that's just my view of this. And I don't have a goal to transcend from that until I transition. So the more that, so I'm just under the guise, and I practice that the more that you can feel the polarity of things, feelings, emotions, whatever it is, again, like he said, pleasure and pain, the more that you integrate and let both of those things flood your system and treat them both as teachers and both as ways that you can become more grounded into your human experience, that is what creates a being that is like more in their body, more in their experience. The more that you try to experience one more than the other because you think one is better than the other, then you're actually like separating yourself from, I think, like the true what's the word that I'm looking for? Reason, like the whole point of why we're here and experiencing. So I think that quote again just speaks to I'm not in the business of trying to negate not feeling pain. You have to be able to feel that and experience that to really like reap the full fruit and benefit of feeling pleasure. Again, you have to experience what disconnection feels like, because that's what helps you to easily pinpoint when like, oh, this is love. This is something that feels totally different than what I've experienced before. If you don't know that, you have no reference point. So that quote brings about that, I guess, philosophy or that way of living and being for me.
Yeah. And while you were looking for the word, I was going to throw out maybe self-awareness,
Yeah.
is kind of where it leads, because when you can understand the pain of yourself, or the pain that you shy away from very naturally, like for some people, some aspects of pain that are internal, that don't like come from the outside, are easily understood, and it's like, yeah, that's nothing. And for other people, that same thing is just like this huge, panic mode, panic button, for the other person. And when you have self-awareness, when you can understand that, and let me sort of bring it out of the clouds a little bit. And what I mean is, for some people, when they realize that they would not like themselves if they were their own friend, or they wouldn't like this aspect of themselves if they were their own best, I'll say best friend, if they were around themselves all the time. Once you get comfortable, those traits come out and they show themselves, and you show your true colors, and all of these things is very true. And when some people notice, like, dang, I really wouldn't like myself's style of conversing,
Mm.
even though I feel like everybody should listen to me. For one person, that could be like, that's funny. But for another person, it's like identity crisis. It's like, oh my God, I thought I was this angel. I thought, but really it just comes down to, you don't understand the pain. You don't understand the discomfort you have with whatever you're resisting. And sometimes you're not willing yet, you're not emotionally mature enough yet to acknowledge that you're resisting something, that you're blindly, I should say, resisting something. You blindly just no to something. And so, yeah, so to get past that, to experience more fully the human experience, you gotta have self-awareness. You gotta know, yeah, I'm resisting stuff. There's stuff that I just blindly resist that come from my childhood.
That, and I think to like dive even deeper into what you're saying, I think that the self-awareness also comes in when, yes, maybe you don't realize that you are fighting something or resisting something, but also realizing like the conditioning that you have around resisting, rejecting, dismissing pain as something to learn from and as a valuable experience. And I think that's where a lot of people sit, is just that, like, I'm not supposed to feel this. I don't know how to sit with this. And also, like, I live in a society that says there's a pill for this. I can have sex for this. I can do something else for this. So that's why I love this quote, because it's a reminder of like, actually, you know what I mean? Like, I used to say this all the time. It's not the pain or the feeling that you're afraid of feeling that's going to kill you. It's everything else that you do to try and distract you from feeling it. Those are the things that could, but the feeling, moving through it and letting it flood your system, you will survive that. It's a wave. So I think just to speak more to that, as being something else that I think is a core of a lot of why people wouldn't understand that quote. What do you mean? Like, be more sensitive to pain, to be more, well, what are you talking about? I'm not experiencing pain. That's not good. That's not a good thing to experience. I
Mhm.
shouldn't be feeling, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
It's like, no, no, the signs are there. You're in pain. You're just distracted from it, or whatever, right? Um, yeah. So, okay. And in noticing this, in being sensitive, probably from birth, or at least from, very early on in your life. What has that led you to noticing is like your natural work, like the work that you love to do? I personally consider you a healer by nature, not necessarily by practice, even though obviously you do practice. But me aside, what do you consider your natural calling, at least at this stage, right? Your natural calling, what you do, and how what you do creates opportunity for love in some way, shape, or form. If that's not too loaded of a question.
Mm. This is a really good question. I personally don't know what I would call myself. I know that you are not the only person who would say, just in life in general, like, Mel, you're a healer. Um, and and I receive that. I definitely do receive that. And I'll say that my journey with truly being well versed in empathy and like my empathic nature is what I offer. And when I say well versed, I mean there are a lot of people that are very empathic that
Yeah, some don't even know it. Yeah.
some don't even know it, where feeling is their gift. Okay, I could say empathic, I could say clairsentient, whatever, whatever terms we want to use for today, but where like feeling others and feeling things is their gift, because that's where I hone in like the wisdom of what to say and how to be with people. And but a lot of times, and I've fallen into this myself, is that oftentimes being empathetic and highly sensitive in that way, especially relating to other humans, you can get lost. I mean, you can dissolve into other people, because there's almost this coolness right these days that comes with being an empath and deeply
Yeah.
being sensitive. Like it's cool and kind of trendy now to say that that's what you are. And maybe you do have the gift, but there's a responsibility obviously that you have in relating with other people, but also relating to yourself with that gift that I think people just totally throw to the side. So there's evolution that comes with being able to feel that deeply and not lose yourself, not to develop a savior complex, and not to like,
Run from it.
there you go.
Not to run from it. And I think it is something is brewing up in me. I know you didn't get to say how what you do creates opportunity for love yet, but something is coming to me in the responsibility aspect, because people hear like responsibility and they automatically, myself included, sometimes we automatically think, okay, so this so-called empathic person is trying to tell me what my purpose is. And it's like, no, no, no. When we speak of responsibility, you are not limited to your body and your thoughts. You did not come into this world, you came out of it. Another Alan Watts quote. You came out of it like leaves come out of trees, like apples come out of branches. You came out of this world. You didn't come into it, meaning you are a product of it. Without the soil and the rocks and the sunshine and the atmosphere, oxygen, whatever, there would be no mommy and daddy to bring you eventually. So no, you didn't come into this world, and you're not some victim of some evil scheme by, or some holy war between a god and a devil. You are here. Very simple. And you being here means you are a part of the totality. Excuse me, the totality, not just the collective, which the collective and the totality are in completely separate worlds. The collective implies separation. Totality is oneness amongst an illusory separation. So responsibility speaks to who you are essentially, fundamentally, not just who you want to be psychologically, but who you are behind the psychology, behind the ego, if you will, behind that. And that came up really strong, because I know that I even used to be like that a little bit. That if somebody, as soon as somebody starts talking about, you have these gifts and talents and you have a responsibility to use them in the right way, I would think, can't tell me what to do. You can't just say that. But no, that's a very, very, very wise piece of advice to heed, that there is such a thing as social responsibility or personal responsibility in regards to, again, the totality, right? What kind of emotional signatures are you putting out there? What kind of habit frequencies are you putting out there, and what kind of example are you setting for who will be here when you're gone, that you're influencing?
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate that, because I'm glad that you said that there was a point where you were like, don't be telling me I have
Really,
don't
really
put that on
strongly too,
me.
like, bitch.
Yeah, for real. Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Responsibility. And I feel like at some point I felt that way too, especially when it
Hmm,
came to like, because spiritual responsibility is a thing, and that's what I'm
hmm,
speaking of in this regard. Like, that's really what I'm speaking of. And so there's, but also when I say responsibility, it goes back to that self-awareness and self-study. Like, how do I use this correctly while taking care of myself and others? Like, how do I use this? I mean, I'll just simply say, I don't know. I can't, I'm just a presence here to just remind people, like, you good, everything is okay. Like, there's good here. There's still good here. Like, there are still there. I don't know. I just like to because I love this, y'all, if you're watching, because Soul, as long as I've known him, Soul is like deep about like everything. And I'm not saying that I'm not deep, and I'm not saying that's bad either, but like, he goes in and he be like, ah. And I and I love this, because you'll probably hear it as we talk more, because as I'm like, where I'm moving, I am finding joy in simplifying shit. Like, I'm just finding joy in, like, what I'm saying, a couple word answers just on some, like, yeah, this is what I feel. Because it just feels good for me right now. And who
so
knows, maybe
Mel, what do you do? Oh, I just be.
like, literally, that's what I'm on. So, but for real, when I'm thinking about, because I just feel like I could do a whole bunch of talking about what do you feel about what you're, but what I've noticed is, over the years, whether it's friendships, whether it's just people I meet, whether it's romantic relationships, the commentary is always on my energy and my presence and how it makes people feel. And so with that, I feel like that's the way that people describe how they feel when they're in my energy, is that's the gift. That's why I'm here. It makes people feel comfortable. It's warming. It's transformative. Like, even if I'm just saying, I don't know, even if I don't really say much, it's just being in proximity swirls shit around in people's lives. And I think that's my gift. It's also a reflection of, like, my own, again, spiritual responsibility. Like, what am I doing for myself to cultivate that energy, so that when I go out into the world, it touches people, even if I'm not saying much, or even if I'm not around them all the time. So I don't know what I would call that. You know what I mean? Maybe there's
Yeah.
a name, but I don't know.
Well,
If there is a name, hey, I would love to
right,
somebody tell me.
right. Somebody give me the memo. I mean, and I've been you've been influencing me for I guess quite a while now, and I've seen certain practical avenues you've taken in this journey of just sharing your energy and helping facilitate a safe space for people, which I think is a good technical term for what you were describing. And like you've taught yoga. You probably still do. I don't know. You've taught yoga, and other movement practices, like getting into your sensual self, meaning senses, as well as sensual in the popular way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Um, but getting into your body and out of your head, getting into your soul through your body and out of your head. Um, I've seen you create, courses and coaching programs for women who want to make that leap of faith into their full spiritual selves. You just created your own podcast called Full Ass Human Podcast. What is important isn't a name for, I do this. To me, what's important is that you know what you're doing,
Mm.
which has to come after you know who you are. So who is Mel?
Mm. Oof. I'm gonna tell you honestly, I'm kind of refiguring that out in this moment. You know what I mean? I am being 100% honest with you because I'm not gonna say I don't know, but I'm refiguring that out. And you know, listeners, you may not know. First of all, listeners, watchers, it's okay for you to say that.
Hmm.
I have
Put the
to
people in the back. No.
yeah, it's okay for you to say that. It's okay for someone to ask you that question and you be like, you know what, in this moment, I don't know, and I'm figuring it out or I'm refiguring it out because there is this pressure, especially now. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know what the hell it is, but there is this pressure to like be sure and clear on yourself at every single moment. And as you change and transition and like let things and people go at certain times and like recalibrate, that answer is going to shift. And sometimes you're going to draw a blank. But it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't say less about you. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that you don't know who you are, but finding the words, it just might be a little hard at this time because there's a lot swirling. So I
Yeah.
just want to say it's all right for you to say that. You know, I will say that over the last 7 or so years, who Mel is has been entangled in the I have created some deep attachment to who Mel is, to the things that I'm doing. So Mel the facilitator, Mel the, movement guide, Mel the mentor, and Mel the business owner, right? Like, so I have really entangled myself into those things. And so now that my business is on hold, now that I no longer live in Texas, now that I'm like no longer in that grind mode to make my business work, and I haven't been facilitating or teaching in some months, I have, it feels like ego death, honestly. Like it has felt like that in a really deep way. When I first
Hmm.
made those decisions to move back home and to stop my business, I couldn't talk for days. I just couldn't talk because I was like, I don't know who I am at this point. And that's a real thing that I'm still moving through. So that's the answer to your question.
That that's
This
that
moment,
is
I don't know.
that is very interesting. That is very interesting indeed.
Mhm.
Um, couldn't talk. Ego
Right.
death. Big. I was gonna say big claims, but I do believe you. I'm not saying big claims like big false claims.
Mhm.
Big things to say. Ego death and couldn't talk and don't know who I am at the moment is very interesting. I mean, when you experience this kind of ego death and things like that, how do you think that impacts your own capacity for love, for instance, or self-awareness? And again, love beyond like romantic connection, although you can get into that if that's what naturally comes, but your capacity for love in general. How does this kind, because my assumption is this is not the first time that identity has come into question for you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're just naturally a very deep person. I mean, you called me deep, but you're also deep, even if it's more so internal. And on some Virgo. And
Right.
so this can't be the first time you've wrestled with who Mel is and who you are beyond name even. So what does an ego? We'll just call the whole thing an ego death, right? For simplicity, what does that do? How does that impact your capacity for love?
So truthfully, it feels bigger and easier. Those are the two words. So honestly, I will say the fact that right now I feel very like, I don't know, like I feel like every day I'm waking up and looking at, you know how you feel when you look up at the sky, whether it's daytime or nighttime, and it's just like, what is out there and how am I separate from the, like it's there's this feeling of like, what is out there and how am I connected to it? And am I the sky? And, I mean, those of you, maybe you've gone on a trip of some kind and you've kind of felt that like dissolving.
Like a
Maybe,
mushroom trip?
yeah,
Okay.
maybe there are some people. Yeah, a mushroom trip. But where
You
you
can.
just,
By the way, I'm saying you can say that too. You can say
okay, I
that
got you.
on the show.
Got you. Okay, got you. More
Sorry to cut in.
sensitive here. Yeah, no, you're good. But that's how I feel right now. And somehow like non-attachment or non-identifying with like who I am and what I'm doing and where I'm going feels more spacious for me
Mm.
to, you know what I mean, to feel like love, to express it, to see it, to feel it, to smell it. I don't know, it feels, because it almost feels like there's no veil or box for me to distort it through.
Do
It
you
also,
feel separate? Or are you right in the middle where there's just honestly no words for that right now? Because
I
that's
feel
very
like
iffy.
I feel like I'm right in the middle. So like seriously, I
Huh.
mean literally.
What a time to hop on a video podcast with
I
this guy, right?
know. Because I'm like, the answer to all your questions is gonna be like, literally, seriously. I mean, because I just went to Chicago and I was around a lot of people who, they're lawyers and doctors and all types of things, it was very easy for them to pinpoint what they're doing and who they are. And everyone asked me like, so like, what do you do? What are you doing right now? And I was like, nothing right now. Just living. I'm here. You know what I mean? And it was cool because no one there was like, what the fuck is you talking about? Everyone just accepted it. So it felt like, oh, okay, that was cool. I didn't know how the response was going to be, but that's literally been my answer to everything. And I think that there have been points in my life where this, and even within the first few days, like I said, of experiencing this feeling where it brought up fear again, like a mushroom trip. You start, it can go left very quickly because this feeling of like dissolving, or this feeling of not knowing or being detached from like who you are, what is this, can bring up a lot of fear because we've
Yeah.
been conditioned from day one to have to be connected to some type of identity, whether
Well,
it's
I think we have to be in control, or that's the feeling. Obviously, we have no control, but like a trip or this kind of experience where career and stability and stuff is completely in question, not in shambles, but in question, more than before, right? More than ever before. In these experiences and with psychedelics, there is like a threshold of control that you are pushed beyond, and now you don't have any. And for some, through some sort of magic, again, even sober, some sort of magic happens where you realize you never did.
Never did. Ooh.
So when it comes to the love and the connection and being able to talk about self, or just spend energy, doing energy exchanges with people, all of that, it's through a whole different lens, through a whole different set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like all of a sudden, so I'm now an infant before, an infant that doesn't know their name, doesn't know that they are a body, which you're not, but we are in ways. The infant doesn't know that. The infant doesn't know it's angry or sad or hungry or satisfied or excited or laughing. Infant doesn't know any of that. There's no association with something my body is doing with what I'm doing. Baby just is. And so when you get past a certain threshold of I have control, oh shit, I don't have control. And you look back and you see that this was just an idea that you thought you had control, that you don't and you never did. You become an infant in ways. And I think, like what you said, your capacity for love, which I define as where joy meets understanding. Your capacity for love does get bigger and easier. You said
Yeah,
easier.
that's what I said. Yeah. Wow. And it's wow. I love that you brought up the word, infant again, because to be experienced, yo, I say this all the time, like my parents' home does feel like a womb. So for you to bring up that word infant, so for this to be happening and naturally like getting to the point where it was like, all right, I need to leave Texas and go home. So to be here in this like infant stage in my parents' house that already feels like a womb that I'm being like incubated in, like spirit knows what's up. You know what I mean? Like, like everything, the divine knows what's up. So that's why I think this is also why I just feel very comfortable with saying like, I don't know, I'm figuring it out. And like, I'm okay with that. It feels uncomfortable. This feels very uncomfortable to me. I feel like my body is here, but everything else is not. So yeah, this is just a wild feeling, but I'm really glad that you brought up like that idea of infancy again, because that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think are some pitfalls that people who are experiencing something similar to you right now could what are some pitfalls that people could avoid that you're fighting right now, that you see, and you could go down that rabbit hole, but something intuitively is like chill Mel, chill fam, so that you don't hurt yourself. What are some things that you would like to tell people?
Ooh. One of the things I've been fighting is that I'm somehow failing or going backwards because I have, been pursuing and growing this business for all this time and living on my own and doing all these things, like all these very like white capitalistic patriarchal things that we're like told is like, this means that you're successful. And then if you're not doing this, you're a bum. So like all of those kinds of like inner stories that we can tell ourselves that's simply based on like socializing and conditioning, I have been fighting that. So, like I said, I was just in Chicago around a lot of people who make a lot of money for themselves in their careers and they're just dropping money. And I'm looking at it and I'm observing it. And there were tinges of me feeling like, oh, and I'm just living at home like I'm a bum bitch. Like I was literally sitting, oh yeah. It didn't last long. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. It
yeah,
didn't last
yeah,
long.
but it showed
Definitely
its
had
face. Yeah.
oh yeah, it showed its face. Like, so feelings like that, because that is what, one, obviously, like, can drive you into a depression, like keep you from getting out of bed and taking care of yourself, because I feel like I've had moments of that I've had to really, like, then reframe, because it's blocked me from seeing the blessing of being here, like how I'm being rechilded in a way, like how I am like the deep support of being here is far beyond what I could have experienced trying to stay, you know, fighting and working through and grinding to figure out how I could make it on my own, in another city or state far away from my family. So I think
Man, I
falling.
resonate with that.
Mhm.
Just go. I just.
Yeah, no, you're good. So that's one pitfall, I feel like, and something that I've been trying to fight is like falling into that narrative about yourself and making that true, because it is not. Um, and then I would say also, and just even kind of similar feelings about a business or a mission, something that you're doing, that maybe you've been doing for some time. I've been officially in business for the last 7 or 8 years. Um, and it felt like I've had so many moments in that time of like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I would fall into tears sometimes facilitating, because it would feel like, whoa, okay, I'm channeling, this is it. This is it. And at this point, it doesn't feel like it's it anymore.
Well, right. You don't
Forgetting.
have the control anymore to say this is it.
Right.
Something else has that power now. Yeah.
So I think another pitfall, that I've been working through, moving through, that people could fall into is just like we talk about relationships, like people come into your life for a reason and a season or whatever, right? Like how we can wrap that around our lesson around letting go and non-attachment. It's the same thing with purpose. It's the same thing with a mission. Sometimes your mission isn't always lifelong. Sometimes it's for an era, and then in the next part, it's something else. Your purpose, like what's to be doing or contributing, is something else, and that's, I feel like, a normal part of also like non-attaching and learning to let go as far as personal chapters and eras, in your life, and being okay with, I did this for this amount of time. It no longer feels like, I no longer feel like I'm in alignment, or it doesn't feel right, or whatever feeling that you have, and knowing that is okay. It doesn't take away from the impact. It doesn't take away from like the energy that you put into it. It doesn't take away that the gifts and the talents that you poured into that. It just means there's something else. There's more, like there's another dimension of you to tap into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, and I tell you, when I say I resonate with that first one, being in not my own, but my wife's parents' crib for so long, building, trying, failing, reset. And it's not even imposter syndrome. I know what I'm good at. I know what people like in terms of like the work that we do. I know what I can do to help people get the results that they're looking for. And I know it well, and I'm confident. And my self-esteem has not been impacted in the I can do it sense, but it's been impacted so heavily, and I could have slipped down and for a little bit I did slip down the just depression slope, um, thinking, there are people that started at the same time I did, and they're doing this and that, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just I'm just here at mama's crib, eating
Yep.
their food and
Yep.
trying to be invisible.
Mm.
Um, That's what I was gonna say. When I say I resonate with that, I really, what you said about that, I really do, because what led to, if I can just be a little transparent, what led to me, um, I call it, I beat it. What led to me beating my suicidal episodes to where they'll never come back was not just gratitude in the sense of like, okay, make a list of things you could be grateful for, and you should, what society would tell you you should be grateful for, but gratitude in the sense of, I'm the gift, the independence, the free to roam around naked, the building things and then watching them, positively impact me financially. All of that is secondary. The gift is me. That gratitude,
Mm.
um, is what is and which, that gratitude, that's, you want everybody to experience that. That's a gratitude you want your best enemy, you want your worst enemy to experience.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? That's it. When it comes, it's unconditional and it's unchanging. It doesn't depend on the circumstance, the right.
Mm.
Um, so I really resonate with what you said there. Swimming back up to the surface a little bit. Uh, it does seem like, well, I say swimming back up to the surface, but not really. It does seem like this redefinition of self has been a consistent element in your story. And in fact, you talk about it in episode 0 of your own podcast. Again, Full Ass Human. Check it out. It'll be in the description of this video. Um, you talk about that redefining yourself, sort of like every few years, if not sometimes every 6 months. It'll just come, and it'll come like a ton of bricks. It'll be like, okay, it's time to,
Yep.
not put the other definitions in the trash, but just put them on their step and then step on it and then be on another step. Do you think that redefinition, is a slowdown or an expansion? And how can people really tap into the positives of that? Because right now, like with 2020, and everything, and just things popping off back to back, at least here in America, really around the world, because Russia went on a campaign of sorts. Um, how everybody is redefining themselves, and everybody's clicking up and then realizing, wait, actually the bad guys might be ruling this group too. Let me unclick and click over here instead. Everybody's redefining themselves so much. How has that, again, impacted you on a surface level, and what can people do to find some goodness in that, because we're all going through self redefinition cycles right now.
For 99.9% of things,
You did a survey? I'm kidding.
for 99.9% of things that we experience as humans here, the most supportive thing that a lot of people need is to hear someone say, like, that's actually the normal thing. Like, this idea that you need to be locked into one identity or be able to say that this is who you are from year whatever to until the moment you transition, that's weird. And when I say weird, I mean, like, that's the thing that's not normal, because that doesn't take into account how you change and grow, the new things that you learn, the things that you unlearn, the new people that you meet, the experiences that you have. It doesn't take into account how that changes you. So I say this like 90% of the time, the answer I'm going to say as far as like how I personally can support or help someone is to say, like, it's normal. It's not unusual for you to go through periods of redefinition. Even if one day you felt, because there's this idea that you're wishy-washy, that you don't know who you are, not standing on your feet, that you don't, that you know, there's all these different terms. And that's bullshit to me personally. There's no way. We change every day. Literally, every day we wake up different. There's something that we knew today that we didn't know yesterday, or there's something that happened, whatever. So we're always changing. So if you really want to be real about it, like, we're redefining ourselves daily
Daily, right.
and daily. So let's just real keep it 100. Let's keep it a buck about that. So this idea of like every few months or every few years, you know, actually like, it's a normal part of this. I don't know what other words to use that can, because again, for someone and for a lot of people, just hearing another person say like, nah, that's not, like, there's nothing weird about that. There's nothing wrong about
Yeah.
that, is what makes them, is honestly what grants them permission to be like, oh, like someone else who's also experiencing this, like, was able to validate that I feel weird about this, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like there's a part, I feel like a big part of my mission in this moment is to, because I've gone on quite a few podcasts since the moment that I went on my business sabbatical and have been talking publicly about leaving, you know, where I was for the last 9 years and moving home. I've had a lot of podcast invites to talk about this experience and almost like normalizing it for people. And so I feel like at this moment, that's kind of like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right,
Like,
right. I'm channeling again. I found my purpose
you
again.
know what I mean? I mean, yeah, and I am, because when I channel, I sweat. Like, I'm sweating right now so much, and it's like, it's not hot, it's not anything, but usually when I'm like channeling and right where I need to be, I sweat for whatever reason. Some people shake, some people have different things. I sweat. So I know, like, oh, okay, yeah, Mel, this is it, because I can see the sweat.
No,
um,
and I really appreciate how like many angles you've come at to say this very thing that you're saying now, which is it is very much a good and positive, but also helpful thing to shift into a new phase of your understanding of yourself, and even sometimes a new phase of your living situation, your life situation, to realityify that shift within your consciousness, that shift within, like, internally.
yes.
We
Oh
making
my
up
God.
words over here, baby.
I love it. I love it. That word, I need to write that down. Yeah.
Realityify.
Because yeah, essentially that is. I've been saying that in so many different ways. I'm glad that you brought it back to like that being the centering point, because because so like, I just, that's not a truth that we're taught to, you know, like, accept.
Mhm.
It's very much choose this, be this, do this, um all the way up until you transition. Like, that is the reality that we're taught. So if there's anything outside of that, if you feel like things are changing, if you want to change direction and do this, there's so much inner conflict and, like you said, discord that you can move through. I mean, I'm sure it's helpful, you know what I mean, because it's helpful for me to like get to a point of like, nope, this is the truth for me. So I'm not saying it's not helpful,
Yeah.
but it's so overkill. It's not, it's, the conflict comes because we're in conflict with like
The
what's,
change.
yeah, exactly. And it's just sad. It's sad to see and to hear people be so fearful of accepting this very like like normal, regular degular part of this experience because of, you know, that disrespect and disregard of like, this is just what
It
happens.
is disrespect. It is or a lack. It's like a lacking of respect. Maybe not disrespect, but it's a lacking of respect for the fact that you're just here, and it's simply that, and that's enough, and your awareness is enough. Your existence is enough. Because, and I think, not to put all of the spotlights toward the problem, but I think the fact that our schooling is largely based on there's one right answer, and all the rest of the answers are wrong, right? You fill out the Scantron, there's one right answer. And that's not how real life is, right? You get out here in the world and you can see very clearly that there is way more than just one right answer all the time. Another thing we're taught in school is don't cooperate, do it yourself, figure it out. And if you don't, then you're not as smart as Sally. You know what I'm saying? But actually, right, that's also not how the real world works. When you get out here, you can see so very clearly that if I can't figure it out myself and I go work with Sally, then I'm the smart one. Sally has a strength, not a smart advantage. She has a strength over there, advantage over me, but not a smarts advantage. If I go work with Sally in the real world, then I'm the smart one. But since it's right from kindergarten, I mean, from you're not developed enough to know that yet. Since that's when it sets in and becomes a core memory, it's very hard to break through that in a sophisticated kind of real way, and live your life from a place of it's okay to cooperate. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be creative, right? You can't be creative with mathematics like that. I mean, you can as a professor. I mean, once you've mastered the craft, and yeah, you can be super creative with mathematics. So that's how I've said it at first isn't true, but you get what I'm saying. You can't say, well, 1 + 1 is 3 if you add another one. Math, you have to say it's 2, and you can't put any extra words, and that's just the answer. So that's what I mean is, learning that it's okay to be creative about how you come up with solutions, and how that's, I think a part of our closed-mindedness is due to our schooling. Um,
Yep.
you know, Not to mention, now we didn't spend this episode talking about relationships, but not to mention that's also carried into our relationships. The don't cooperate and the one right answer are also carried into our romance
Mm.
stories. And it does do damage. It does do damage. I think one last point, because you be dropping the gems, they just be in short words, so I want to expand on them. One last point that I want to make is that there is something that's unchanging through all of the changes, all of the redefinitions of self, there is something that's just me, and it's not just me like just blank, like dead space. It's not dead space, right? Like, there's a reason why when studios, like when they're making movies and things, they don't put dead space. They don't erase the audio that you capture when the mic is on and no one's speaking and no one's walking, no one's moving, no one's making. They don't erase that for a reason, because dead space is dissonant. It's not. It doesn't feel right. We know that there's life and there's stuff in space. Yet space itself does not change. It doesn't matter what you put in the room still has the same amount of space. Doesn't matter what you take out of the room, the space remains unchanged. Doesn't matter if you destroy the room, the space remains unchanging. And there is something deeper than your personality, deeper than your inner know-it-all, deeper than everything that is unchanging and is still complete. You know what I'm saying about yourself, and I think the reconciliation between I'm constantly changing, constantly redefining myself, and also there's something that doesn't change, and there's something that's very fundamentally, essentially me, and the coming together of those two worlds is where love can really exist,
Mm,
unconditional and unbridled and real.
yo.
Yeah,
See,
write
y'all
that down
see,
for
yeah,
me.
y'all
I'll
see,
forget.
y'all see. I really love how you worded that. And it's so funny that you say that, because in one of my episodes on my podcast, maybe it's episode 0 at this point, but I said that, even though all of my, titles have changed over the years, and branding and all these things have changed, what has remained, what I said in the episode, what the title, like the thing that always has remained is Mel. Like through all of that, like me, this being, I've been here through all of it. And so what you were saying, it just makes so much sense. And that's not necessarily like me identifying myself as male isn't necessarily, well, I mean, it is. That has been unchanging. Actually, I know that you meant something deeper beyond,
No, for
identifying.
you, that may be how it expresses itself, though. It
Mm,
may still be the same exact thing, but for you, the way it comes through you is you consciously put Mel in the name and the essence of your spaces that you create. But that's just a manifestation of this very basic, very universal truth that there is something that is, it's not, because again, it's not personal. It's deeper than my personality and my ego and my mind, even. It's deeper than that. That is so no, it may be the same thing. Excuse me.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you clarified that. I think it is. It's the same thing. But like you said, it's how it's being expressed in my experience. Because I don't, and that's the thing. I might have had these moments where I felt like I'm dissolving, but I came out of it still knowing like, no, I'm still here, and I feel like that's speaking to that unchanging thing that's always like, I spoke to it as, and I named it spiritual fortitude. Like I'm giving this unchangeable thing that you're talking about names, and how like I see it for myself in my own experience. So I
Yeah.
always talk about how, like, regardless of my emotional health, mental health, but my spiritual fortitude right here. And then I speak about it is, besides all the titles changing and the branding changing, Mel has always been here. So like that's how I've been speaking about what you just said. And it makes so much sense. I really liked how you said it though. I'm gonna have to watch this back. I really, because I
Me
liked
too.
how you worded that.
Me too. I mean, you call it channeling. I don't know what I be doing, but it be coming.
I mean, well, yes, I call it channeling. Whatever name, but
I don't mind any name. I just like you said, Soul, what you doing? I'm just being.
yeah, chilling out here, just chilling, being,
Out here putting things into words, putting words into things. But
hey,
that's just it, right? We are not words. Reality is not words. Alan Watts was big on that. Reality is not words. You cannot, since words exist in reality. If I can put a picture, some imagery to it, since words exist in the bubble of reality, you can never word reality
mm,
because it's that words are inside. You can't.
yep,
So So that's the thing, you know, and all of it relates back to everything that we've been talking about throughout this episode. I've had a lot of fun. Definitely, we should do this again. My hope in my heart is that after I get through the sort of first round of interviews, that I'm gonna try to bring people together on the same day, and have more than one guest at a time, um and really come together. And then, when things pop off the right way financially, we're gonna fly each other out and be in the studio, and have microphones that have the little stand. I
Yeah.
really admire those.
You know what I'm saying? Those little
Yeah,
microphone stands they make you feel real, real official in the little podcast
yeah,
world.
yeah, man. And sit around the table, probably light something up, and chit chat for a little bit. Um, that's the vision. That's the plan. Um, I love you, Mel. It's really, really an honor to have you on. This is episode 1 of the Expression of Love podcast. Really quick, and I do mean, I don't mean there's a hard cutoff time or anything, but really quick before we close out, what is love to you? Like, what does love mean to you at this stage of your life?
Oof. Uh, Love for me is it's a capacity. Um, and you use the word. It's a capacity for understanding and connection beyond condition, and really beyond conditioning. um, but that's what it is for me right now, and I truly do think that that is the presence that I have been like harnessing over the years, is to be that. That's what I mean, the responsibility, that's where it comes from, is like, how can I come from that space when relating with myself, others, the world. But I just see it, the word capacity comes to me. And then whatever, I want to fill it in. Right now, it's understanding and connection. And maybe later it'll be something else, but
Yeah.
that's what it feels like to me. I feel love, I see love as a container.
Hmm.
I
Hey.
get a
Hmm.
visual representation of this container
Yeah.
that just keeps like, expanding and expanding.
Yeah. Like a container, but without borders.
Right? Like at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It's cool because I said something about space being unchanging earlier, and you said, without conditioning. Space doesn't have an outer limit, but a lot of scientists agree that space is indeed curved, but it doesn't have a limit. Somehow it's curved
Mm,
because everything in life is either a spiral or a sphere. And so
yes.
space itself shouldn't necessarily be an exception, although, again, it would be beyond our human eyeballs to be able to see the edge. There's no edge to
Mm,
space, but it
mm,
may be curved. And so it's kind of like, or I relate that to what you just said about this capacity, this container. It doesn't really have, it's not like a glass container that, okay, love is this big and it's this dimensions and no, but it somehow is, you know,
yes. Ooh, that's the perfect, that is the perfect thing to relate it to. Ooh, yes, yes, yes.
Clapping it up for Spirit, by the way. I'm not super arrogant. Um, to those watching, I was clapping it up for wherever that came from, not myself. Uh, Thank you for being here. Thank you for being, and thank you for being here now. Big hugs.
Yes, I love you. Thank you for having me.
Love you too.